Hey beekeepers, welcome back to the Hive Doctor, your beekeeping mentor. And welcome back to part 2 of essential oils versus Varroa mite. Today we're going to be going over why I have chosen the specific 3 essential oils that I have, the method of delivery, and what it would take to really make this experiment worth trying and getting the results that we want to see as beekeepers. So there's going to be some clarification, a lot of good stuff coming your way today, so stick around. Okay, beekeepers, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and start digging into the first hive that in the same yard I showed you last week in part 1, and pretty much first of all checking the status of our method of delivery, which was those little cotton pads. I'm also doing a few other things while I'm here in the yard to make the most of one trip. I'm putting out quarter size pollen patties from HiveAlive on each of my colonies, and I'm putting out quilting boxes that onto the colonies that didn't have one. Those are mostly my splits. So here's my quarter patty. Of course, these come in like 1 pound patties. I cut them into fourths. My goal in using those is not that they need pollen patty protein supplement stuff, but because some of the research that's recently come out about Varroa mite showing that in fact they're not sucking on the lymph of the bee while in the brood stages, but rather they're sucking and eating, feeding off of the fatty content of the brood. So they're coming out of the cells with less body fat content. And I'm using this higher protein, I think it's 15%, just to kind of help combat that and get more protein, more fat into the colony. So let's come closer and look at this pad and I'll show you what we've got. First thing that I notice is I'm not seeing the hive beetle that I was about a month ago. So that's a good report. Our pad here is loose. They haven't done anything. I see that there is a bee with her leg stuck in this, very much in the same way that we put those pads in for, oh boy, for a hive beetle to get stuck in. So that alone tells me that this method of delivery, though effective in distributing the oils, is not bee friendly. So we won't be using these again. And that's exactly why we experiment. We want to know that. That being said, I will finish out with these fresh pads that I have, but after that I'm going to find a different method of delivery. One good thing to be said, especially about the Varroxan strips, is that there's no way bees can get caught in those with their legs, and they have a greater surface area that they work in. The only thing about those is that they don't really kill the mites, they more just suppress their population growth, which is a big deal, and that is a good thing to have in, especially during the time of year when we can't get around to everything. So with this fresh pad in mind, I'm going to keep this in the colony for another week. The one I just took out still has the smell of the essential oil, but it's clearly dried up. So I'm going to say its potency, its efficacy is not very long compared to other methods. All right, so we've already learned some valuable information. We have found about how long the potency of these little pads is, which is not very long, less than a week or so, which means it's going to need it more often. And we also found that the bees can get their legs stuck in the cotton pads once those oils wear off, because then it becomes really fluffy. So we're not going to do that in the future after having used up what I've already prepared for them. Out with the old. This colony is a larger population. This pad is chewed up a lot more, which is not a big deal. I mean, the bees usually chew stuff up and move it out a piece at a time. Now let's talk about why we're using the 3 essential oils that we are. Well, in my research, I have found that tea tree oil, peppermint oil, and oregano oil are very effective against Varroa mite in keeping a colony treated against them. Now, especially so was oregano oil. In the research, it shows each one of those oils being a certain percentage effective. And I think the lowest score was like 80%, 80.2. That's not bad. And the highest one was 100% effective when treated strongly and often enough. And that was the oregano oil. That was the strongest one. So according to the research, each of these oils is effective, and others are as well, in helping to treat and prevent Varroa mite from just taking over. So now at this point in my experiment, what's really needed is a more effective method of delivery, not these little pads, something that the oils can soak into, and perhaps they would last longer in the same type of heavy cardstock, like cardboard, that is used for the Varroxan strips. And even more importantly, when doing this, would be to keep a consistent mite count. And in my case, I recommend that being a mite drop count by using a slider board underneath your screened bottom board to do a count. And you could do that once a day for a week while this pad is in, once every 2 days, whatever you want. But being consistent with your method of counting would be what's most important. A lot of you know I'm not a proponent of alcohol washes. I think they're pointless, unnecessary, and questionable. I get that they're done to see if a treatment is effective and to get a mite count per X amount of bees so that you know what your total might be in the colony. But one, I always assume I have mites. Two, I use methods of mite control that mites cannot adapt to, which are synthetic chemicals. They always seem to adapt to those. I use oxalic acid, essential oils, Varroa control frames, screened bottom boards, and if you haven't already seen it, check out my video, 6 non-lethal ways to do mite counts. I know some of you are big on doing the alcohol wash. If that's your thing, do it. Some of you are completely against it, and I get that too, because I'm in that camp. I'm not trying to change anyone's mind here, but there are other ways of doing it. Now, something I'd like to clear up, I noticed from the comments from part 1 of this video, is why I wasn't using lemongrass or spearmint, because those oils attract bees. Well, I'm not trying to attract bees. They're already in my boxes. I'm trying to treat against mites. And so that's why I don't use those. However, that being said, both lemongrass and spearmint have also been proven in research to be effective at controlling Varroa mite. So it's not like it would be a bad thing for using them. Am I looking for a mite treatment replacement for my oxalic acid vaporization? No, I'm just looking for a supplement, because every little thing that the mites cannot adapt to is going to help control a certain percentage of keeping them under a manageable level. And this treatment option is so easy. I've already, within a week, figured out I need a different way of administering it, and that's okay with me. I'm sure that most of you can agree that as a beekeeper, we pretty much are just experimenters. We're our own little scientists in our own ways. You don't necessarily have to wait for the actual bee scientist to come out with something for you. You can take matters into your own hands. Now this one, they propolised in place. That's pretty cool. I've got a big wad of propolis right here. And I can leave that. I'll put that up back on the top bar. That stuff is really good to keep in the colony. I'm not trying to take that out at all. Okay, little pad. I have noticed as a YouTube guy that when it comes to treating for Varroa mite, it's probably one of the most controversial things that I find myself in. And it's interesting. People are very strong in what they believe when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I think that that's okay, but I think it's also okay to keep an open mind. None of us have this completely figured out, but each and every day between the science, those who are energetically aware of how to keep bees, and those who just keep trying, we all figure out something, and eventually all that something's going to come together. And just one more reminder before I go, it's never too late to get your own pair of Apis tactical beekeeping gloves. Check out their website. I'm sure they have a style that suits you, and when you go on there, once you're in checkout, put into the coupon code little area thing, the Hive Doctor 10, and you'll get 10% off your entire order. Can't beat that. They not only work really well, but they look freaking cool too. And I think as beekeepers, we need to look awesome because we are superheroes saving the world. One beehive at a time.